I think similar to the Paulo Sergio thing, I think it might have put me on the radar. I'm not entirely sure, but it's something I never actually asked. But I remember at the time that coach at Jagiellonian, it was kind of done. I had the feeling it was done the kind of like that British way of, if a manager likes some players, the club signs the players the manager wants. It's not like a director's signing players that a manager doesn't really know about. So I think it was because I'd played against them.
Yeah, but brother, when you joined Omonia, I think we made about 9-10 signings that summer, and I think the same amount of players left. I remember Fofi left that summer, didn't he, Roy? Didn't Fofi leave that summer? End of August?
Yep.
And Baudet left as well. But, you know, it must have been difficult, not just for you, but for the whole team. And Gaiafa, especially when you've got so many players coming in at the same time. And don't forget, we'd won the title like 5 years prior, and players like Leo was still there, and they'd left that summer. So it's almost as if it was like a massive transitional period. But it kind of continued to be a transitional period with the shit constantly hitting the fan.
Yeah, it's that's one of the things when things aren't going good. It's so hard to change things around quickly, to get a quick like impact of so many changes. And I think I'd probably say that's what hurt us the next season, because the next season was an even bigger change when we had Dabizas in as a director, and like it was just a completely different structure. So you had the turnover of all the players and the coaching, but also the other structure of the club changed as well. And it was hard, like a club at Omonia, it's hard to have a slow transition. Like fans expect the club to be winning, so it's hard to have a 1 or 2 seasons where you're going to have to say, look, things aren't going to be too good for these seasons. Like you can't say that, or you can't even start the season with those expectations. So it's like you're saying, with a turnover of players is always difficult.
But don't forget, I mean, when you were at Upwell, there was a much more structured dynamic at the club, wasn't there? And then you come to Omonia, where we know about the financial difficulties. We've spoken to many players, Fredji being one of them. We had Skembri on a few weeks ago, and he was telling us how difficult it was at the time at the club. And then Dabizas comes in with John Carver. Obviously, Milivojevic had a bit of a short stint. But when you saw Dabizas come in, and you saw, I presume you guys saw a few changes being made in the background and the structure of the club and the way that the mechanics, so to speak. Did you at any point, or the rest of your teammates, turn around and say, right, fuck, you know, things are changing now, we really need to step up? Or was this attitude pretty much the same? We just go out on the training pitch, give it all, go back on the pitch, listen to the coach, do our job, and if the results come, they come?
No, I think it was just, there was so much trying to be changed. And it was hard to, like I was saying, it's hard to have all those changes and everything just to continue, not even just to continue as they were, like results wise, the club is doing well, or not doing well, but like is in the top end of the table, is challenging. But to also make the changes, obviously, because you want to go better, it's hard to suddenly just change everything. A new approach, new ideas, and when players come in, and it was a weird start, because I remember we started that season okay, but because we weren't maybe playing such good football, or because we weren't beating teams like 3-0 or 3 or 4 goals every game, we were still beating, I think the first 6 or 7 games, we might have won 5 games or something, but kind of like scraping wins, but we were still winning. And because we were winning, there was still a bit of a bad atmosphere, like almost like a disappointment that it's still not good enough. And then it was hard when the results actually weren't going good, it just made everything like more magnified and more intense.
So was it fans or the press where you felt the pressure more? Because I understand that a lot of fans are close to the players. You go to a coffee shop, they won't leave you alone. You got the press constantly hounding you. It's not like the UK where they're literally in your bins taking photographs. But I guess press conferences or when you're out and about, you're going to have people constantly slandering you. And obviously you wouldn't know the language, but at the same time, you're obviously being told these things from your teammates. So I guess it must have upset the team morale, surely.
Yeah, the press or the media didn't really bother me, or even the fans saying stuff, or the pressure from the fans didn't really bother me. It was probably just because there was so many different things coming in, and players that would be coming in that wouldn't be used to it. Because I was thinking, like, when I came into Apoel, or like into Cyprus straight away, and I remember thinking the first time, like, going through a bit of a bad patch, and that was at Apoel whenever they just won the league. They've been in Europe. Everything was still good for the club, and I still found this like, oof, that was pretty tough. Like, so if you've got all that, plus you don't have all that behind the club of the success to kind of like cushion it a little bit, it just kept getting, it would just keep getting worse and worse. And for players that wouldn't have had that before, it would be, it's a big ask for players, and not just a few, because there was so many new players as well. It would have been difficult.
Did any struggle to get settled, do you think, family-wise? Because obviously you go out there, you were already out there, so to speak, but these guys that came from different nations didn't speak the language. Perhaps they didn't have any teammates that spoke the same language. Did you see any struggle?
No, there was nothing like, there was nothing in a training or the training ground where you'd feel like, oh, it was like bad, like there was a bad environment or anything. There was nothing like that. Like, everything was, we'd go in, we'd try and be as positive as we could after a bad time. But it just kind of was growing and growing. And like, one of the hardest things in football is to get confidence. When things aren't going good, or a team doesn't have confidence, isn't playing with confidence, it's the hardest thing, and it's the worst thing as well, because you know what it is. Like, you know, you're doing everything during the week. Everyone was training good, trainings were good. We had good fitness coaches, good coaches, everything. But confidence, like, if a team doesn't have confidence, it's not something you can train on. You can't train, like, you can train your finishing or fitness, but trying to get confidence, it just comes from winning and doing well. And we were just kind of always chasing that, and just obviously never getting it.
I think it's great that you're another player that's basically knocked something on the head here, because a lot of players that we've spoken to about Omonia during their time when the club was going through a difficult period financially, especially, they didn't let that bother them. It didn't play a part in their performances. They just remained professional. Again, you're another one of the players that says, right, whatever happened in the background has nothing to do with us. Like, as long as we got paid and whatnot, that got sorted, and eventually you got paid eventually. But it didn't prevent you guys from playing the game. As you just said, it was about confidence. Results when coming. But when Carver came in, him from the UK, he claimed to be, at one time, I don't know if you know this, Roy, but John Carver once said that he was one of the best coaches in the UK. And that was a big thing to say, big thing to say. And he came to Cyprus. I believe that he was on his way to Las Vegas before he got a phone call from Dabizas for him to come to Cyprus. What was he like from a tactical perspective? Because he did remarkably well in the background for Newcastle. Let's not make any bones about it. He did very well for him. But it's a shame that he didn't get the opportunity to kind of do things his own way in Cyprus. Because I remember the last time we spoke on the podcast, Cillian, I was saying, like, maybe he needs an opportunity. He definitely needs the opportunity to kick things on. And then fast forward, I think it was 7-8 months, and that was it. He was only there for 7-8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was. I had him when I was at Plymouth. He came in as the assistant coach, so I had him very briefly. But like training wise, coaching. Excuse me. Coaching and the training, like he put on some of the best training sessions I've had. I mean, like we do finishing drills after training. He'd do them, and he's definitely more of a coach. I feel like because not often after training, if you're doing extra drills, it's normally an assistant coach or another coach is will take those stuff. The manager doesn't really do those extra drills after the training, and he'd always stay back, and the Yorgos Simos was the assistant.
Yeah. He was in Aussie this year.
And the two of them would always stay back. So it was a bit like it was strange for the manager to be doing that extra, but that's just if you're a coach, you're a coach. You want to coach, like you want to put on sessions, and like I'd back up how good a coach he was, from the sessions he put on. But I just think he just came into a hard environment at the time. Like it was, like I was saying, like you can do everything on the training, but if the team just can't win, and you need wins, you need one win then to get on a little roll, and then you've got confidence back. But it was just hard to get. I just remember like games where there was never. I don't remember a game where we were up by a few goals and like enjoying it. You were just kind of always.
It was scraping victories.
Yeah, you were just thinking, just win the game. We just need to win this game.
Yeah.